All right. Hello and welcome everyone to this sweet presentation we're going to do about how to stop wasting time on marketing your course or your training-based membership site. I've got Tom Libelt here. He's an excellent marketer, sales professional, and he takes it very seriously, and he does it by the numbers. In order to do the numbers, we have to have proper marketing attribution in place. He's from WeTrackYourMarketing.com. Tom, I'm so excited to have you back here. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm always happy to be on. Like I follow your stuff too, man. Like the thing that I love about what you do is the consistency, and you're persistent. You know, it's not usual in the online space, and I think that's
I play the long game. That's once I get on something, I'm going to be on it. So I appreciate you saying that.
yeah, because I just don't see it often, and I think that's great. That's why I reached out back to you. I was like, I want to make sure your audience understands kind of what we go through in our agency, like on a daily basis. So I'm going to share some strategy and just why we do what we do. I think it's going to help.
That's awesome. Well, before we get into it, just real quick to housekeeping for the group. This is interactive. We are going to do Q&A, so use the Q&A box, use the chat. If you have questions as you go. Do you prefer, Tom, to have questions throughout or save to the end?
Usually at the end it's best, because once I get off my game, like, where was I? I'm completely not remembering.
I can totally relate. So we'll save questions to the end, but as he's talking and questions come up, drop them in the chat. If you're watching this on the live stream in the Facebook group, we'll be keeping an eye on the comments over there, and I'll help MC those in at the end. We're also going to be doing a LifterLMS giveaway of $99. So if you stay to the end and you're live on the call, you'll be eligible for that. You can use that on a free year of any of our single add-ons priced at $99, or you could apply it against something else. If you're already a customer, we'll hook you up with that value of that and extend your license. And that's really all the housekeeping. I'm super excited to get into this with you, Tom. Marketing is part art, it's part science. It's really both of them working together. So take us to school.
Yeah, so, I used to always say that too, that we're like part science and part art, but I read this book very recently, right? It's the bean counters versus something else. It's like out of the GMC car company book, right? And how the scientific and MBAs and bean counters destroyed the entire company by being themselves. So I'm a little more careful now when it comes to that. I think more about systems and just, does this make sense? I try not to say the science thing, because, if you go too much in the scientific, give me the 15 proven headlines and give me the 15 this, you're going to come out with something super bland and destroy what you're doing. And I wish I knew the full title of the book, but if you just put bean counters in like Amazon, you'll find it's an amazing book. And I was just, I looked at it, I was like, my God, I'm making a lot of these mistakes by going too scientific. So I think just wanted to share that.
That's awesome.
So this is a little bit of housekeeping on my end. I'll keep it super short. Been in sales and marketing for too long. I've owned businesses and brick and mortar businesses. So I've seen both sides, and I know which one I prefer. At the moment, I'm running a course marketing agency, which means what I'm saying is very important to this group, right? Because if I do just a marketing agency, people will be like, well, what's this got to do with courses? I'm in your niche. Like, I know what you're going through day to day, because we're an SEO agency, been doing it for a long time. Over 150 course creators marketing their courses, responsible for a lot of money in the last 12 months for them. You can find more info about me, but yeah, let's get on with the show. This is something I was showing at a presentation the other month, and just people were laughing so hard. But
that's good.
I like to send stuff like this to my email list too. So just throwing that in there.
That's awesome.
So here's the strategy and tactics that we work when we start playing with paid ads. And this presentation works for all marketing, right? Organic as well. The reason I put paid ads in here, because that's the most risky thing that you can start, right? You know, if I'm like, oh, well, you know, it doesn't really cost me anything. It does, but it doesn't hit your wallet immediately. So that's why I touched on paid ads. Anytime my client starts paying out their pocket, that's when things get real, you know, because it's a daily, you know, how much did we spend? Yeah. So this is what we usually do. Every single client that comes across, we start tracking marketing, because 99% of them just don't do it. The second thing we do, we start playing with paid ads, is we need to find the message that converts. And this is usually when we do try to touch on the organic as much as possible. The third thing is we rack the shotgun, and I'll explain that. And then we narrow in and scale, right? But this is the strategy you use. So you could say this is as scientific as we get, because there are so many variables in each one of these, but this we follow every single time. So with tracking marketing, we used to track just, you know, and Facebook and all of them, but we quickly realized, and this happened during the bigger jobs. Small numbers, like you usually don't notice it, but when you start making, you know, $40,000, $50,000 a month through courses and spending, you know, 15, 20,000, these numbers showed up very, very clearly. And all of the conversion numbers we've seen from Google and Facebook were off, right? Because we tracked them initially through just Google Docs. So we knew what's in the bank. And then we looked at the Google numbers and Facebook, and they were always off. And 30% is a huge number when it comes to, you know, when you're spending serious money and looking for, yeah. So the 30% was either up or down. We either thought we had 30% more sales or 30% less sales. And later on, we realized it's the same thing with just how many people visited our page, still off. Google Analytics does not help much, because they don't jump cross-platform. And anytime you're doing courses and you'll do them for longer, you will start playing with different marketing methods, right? So for example, you will use LifterLMS as your course platform. You might use Webinar Jam as your webinar platform. You might use LinkedIn as your outreach. You might use WordPress by itself on a different page as just a sales page. You know, you might use different platforms, and Google Analytics just does a very poor job figuring out what's happening, and especially when you put emails in that, right? So let's say someone signs up on your opt-in page. They go to email 1, which is a thank you, then email 2, which is a welcome, and then they go through a sales sequence. Google Analytics doesn't know that if someone jumped from the opt-in page to the emails to email 8, clicked on the link, and then bought, that this person started off at that opt-in page, as opposed to someone that just opted in through, let's say, a Facebook ad, right? So we just don't know what's happening at all. We sort of know that they came from an email if we have okay tracking, but we just don't know, well, how did they get to that email? How did we get them on the list? We just can't work backwards as well. So it's okay for very, very simple tracking in the beginning, but it just quickly loses, you know, its abilities as you increase the marketing. And you should really know how people interact, right? Like I like to reverse engineer sales as much as possible. So I don't care about the traffic coming in, and see where those people came from, right? Because that's what I want more of. And we can't really do that well with analytics. So this is just stuff I looked up really quickly on Google, and, you know, articles like this everywhere. They're inflating traffic metrics, they're inflating video metrics. The Facebook one was actually very scary when we went heavy into Facebook videos last year with a few clients, and we realized that they're inflating them by almost 900%, you know, the views. For my clients, it was one thing, but I mean, if I think about companies like Pepsi, you know, Coke, or anyone that's really going heavily in branding, and they spent, you know, $20-30 million with them, thought they're getting all these millions of views, and it's really not. Oh man, I feel like some lawsuits should be, you know, happening. But anyways, you can't trust what these guys are saying. That's the thing, right? So, and this is why we've seen that trend now going to YouTube more. I don't know if you've seen it, Chris, with the YouTube videos. After, you know, people realize that Facebook is inflating these numbers and they're not working well, then YouTube started becoming huge, which in its own end, I've seen so I don't know what kind of courses, you know, people have in this call, but I've seen for anything that's got to do with certificates or, you know, passing exams, people making six figures before they even come to me, just through organic YouTube videos. I've just seen it work well every single time. But it's for those niches. Like if you are teaching someone how to pass a certain exam, and that exam actually leads to something, right? So those ones, I would start with YouTube regardless. And this is how I track my page, right? So it's actually fairly simple. I couldn't really show too much of my client stuff. I'll show parts of it later on, but this is just my thing. It's very visual, right? So I will see, you know, how many people hit my homepage, the percentage that moves on to other key pages that I'm tracking. This is one of our very important pages. It's a sales page for We Market online courses. So I really want to see, you know, which case studies are leading into that. I can see that this second one does not do very well. So I'll look into that more. And then I want to see how many people fill out the consultation form, but it's very visual, right? And you can do this through, like I said, inter-platform, right? So this could be your sales page or opt-in, webinar. We could move on to emails here. You know, I don't have any in this example, but it's very visual the way we like to track them. And it's easy for clients to see what's happening too. The one part I really like, and it's helpful for people, right? So as I mentioned, my services page, that's my key page, right? So for you guys, it would be your sales page of your course. If you look at the plus symbols, these are all the sources which are being tracked, but I don't have in my map. So I could simply press plus on one of these and have it show up here and be like, okay, now I have even better visual. So for example, I have a couple pieces of key content in here that's not showed up, and my podcast page. That's pretty big. And now I can see too, just by looking at the second one, that my about page is actually bringing in quite a few people onto my services page. So I would probably link those together too, just to get a better number and then just visual metric when I look at it. But that's what's cool about this. Like it will track things which you are not tracking. It'll still see that traffic. So for some of my clients, what they've done is they, you know, got affiliates and things like that. And when they see sales, they'll say, let's say like 200 sales and only 15, we can figure out where they came from. And by looking here, we'll say like, oh man, this is where all these other ones are coming from. And usually it's affiliate channels or something else. But at least you have a really good idea now what's happening, because before you were just like, well, I think I'm getting it from there, you know. And if you have a lot of places bringing sales, it becomes overwhelming. And I've seen this over and over. And this is that reverse engineering of sales, right? So if you've seen my traffic before, and this is from the same time frame, right? So look at the numbers. You have 101 on the homepage here, right? So these are the people that directly has something to do with my end goal, which is the consultation form. If you look before without reverse engineering, it's a much different number, right? I'm seeing 1,500 people that showed up here, and these numbers are all off, but they don't all count, at least for me, because they haven't all hit the goal, which I want them to. So I reverse engineer, and now I'm looking, okay, let me see where they're really coming from. So see from the about page, yeah, people do click over, but they don't lead to the consultation form as much. Most of them come straight from services, and then I would have to click on services here and figure out where are they coming from, right? So maybe they are coming from the about page onto services, and I should make this even clearer, you know, to push them through. So I'd be looking at click-through rates a little more on this page, how to get them into services even more. But I like to see these numbers because these are the people who actually went through and probably bought something from me. another thing we do is we look at the heat maps, right? So when I mentioned about page, I would definitely set up a heat map on here and see how people are interacting. And these two examples are pretty clear, right? Like this one, we would just see where people are clicking. Yeah, pretty much on the button, that's fine. Here, where people fall off in the content, this actually looks pretty good. But I've seen some really weird stuff happen with heat maps. So sometimes towards the top, we'll see a big blue line over here. And that means one paragraph is just horrible and losing people. So easy fix, change the paragraph. With the clicks, what we've sometimes seen, a part of the page that means nothing is getting clicked on a lot, you know, because the way people interact doesn't always make sense, which is okay. That's why we track. And we would just put an opt-in or a button in that area and conversions go up because for some reason they're just clicking there anyways. And sometimes it's like a piece of text or just like a blank background piece. And we're like, okay, yeah, but you know, we'll have like 13% of all people clicking and we just put something there. So you do want to track this too. And then heat maps is an easy fix, hotjar.com. You get 3 pages for free, easy to get started. So these are the tools we use. Heat maps, key pages, Hotjar, free. Initially, after 3 pages, you pay. But you know, you can start with 3. Just have your sales page, your opt-in page, and one of your key pieces of content or about page with this, because that's where people click on. And that's 80-20 of that, you know, takes care of most of the business. For that sales conversation, we use Funnelytics, which is not free. It's about $2,000 per year now. Between that's like 15 to 2,000, depending which one you get. But with our service, you just get access to that for a one-time, very cheap fee. But we use this for all our clients. We were one of the founding members, so we're able to pass this on. But we use Funnelytics for that. It's been working best out of all the ones we've tried. So finding your message. Whenever possible, you want to use your organic audience to do this, right? So before you go paid, before you start really thinking about scaling marketing or even marketing, you got to figure out what converts for you. So yeah, I mean, ask Chris about this. Like, do you have a message that you found converts better than anything else when you're trying to sell LifterLMS?
Well, I know that the 3 goals that people want are impact, income, and freedom. And so that's like a benefit that people want. And I know that people want, there's some confusion in the marketplace around the difference between an online course, a membership site, and an LMS. So I need to help in the messaging for people to clarify what these words mean. And I know depending upon the use cases, whether it's like a online course, a membership site, an internal training tool, an education-based marketing tool, the message has to change based on my use cases. So there's a lot of messaging stuff I have to figure out, and there's a lot of segmentation going on.
Okay. So what we would usually do, like with you, and this happens with a lot of the course creators, we would start with, let's say, your Facebook group, right? And we would split test a lot of the messages to figure out which one is getting the most of what you want, right? And really try to narrow that in while tracking, you know, because you want to track, like, you know, these links coming through properly to just see what message converts best, right? Because that's usually where you'll get the best ideas for your, you know, later marketing. But you start with the biggest channel that you have. And I think your biggest organic one would be the Facebook group.
Or a podcast, one of those.
Or a podcast, yeah. So you would test those. Podcasts would be a little more difficult since we don't know how they're coming off of it. But what I would do is set up separate landing pages for each message.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And then I would know they only heard from this on the podcast because I haven't shared it anywhere else. So by seeing how many hit and what they do based on that, I would know what my message is. So if you have a podcast for any course creator, that would be one way of doing that. But the main thing is just start with your main audience. And for some people, that's an email list. They get it from just doing live presentations. And it's the same thing. You would segment your email list by 100, 200 people, just to get a small, kind of data feedback unless you have a lot of people. And just send different messages to different pages. And, based on those links, you can see what people react to better than, not. Because that's the first thing you need. And that's why copywriting is very important. But hiring copywriters is very dangerous.
Why do you say that? I agree with you. I'm just curious what you're saying.
So there are a couple different things, right? Like the one is egos, right? They usually don't know your market as well as you do, right? So most of them will start telling you about all the stuff they know instead of really asking you about what you know, which is what's going to lead to that copy, right? Pricing, it's virtually impossible to see how good a copywriter is based on pricing. Very little correlation. It's more about how confident they are that they can get that price more than anything else. Yeah. Also, for a lot of course creators that I've seen, spending a lot of money here is just not good use of the limited budgets that they have. So like there are so many unknowns that by putting money into it, I feel like this is really a lottery. It's just, there's just so many things with copywriters, and I've hired some myself too. And like I have maybe a bit more experience, so I can quickly figure out which ones, trying to weasel into the job more than actually know what they're doing. But I found by, asking the right questions of yourself and then of your clients, you can get way more information that will create a great sales page than, this copywriter could do. So like my advice would be, if possible, and I do this for my own business, but, if possible for your own, try to sell one-on-one to a few people, and I don't care how that is. It's through a phone, it's through LinkedIn, Facebook Messenger. Just talk to a couple clients and really figure out if there's a common conversation happening. So what that means is, are you hitting the same points every single time that lead to a sale? And are you getting similar questions that are stopping people from a sale? And do people see any red flags? And this is a little harder, but you can see that by seeing where the conversation kind of stopped, And based on those three things, and this is what any copywriter do, they will just charge you a lot more because they need to research and they don't know your industry. But based on those things, you can actually write a very good sales page, which doesn't need to be long. Don't get caught up into these like long form, short form. It doesn't matter if you hit the right points with the prospect, and they have a feeling like they want to buy from you, because the feeling is very important. But logically, they don't see any red flags, and this will make sense for their business. That's all you need, right? You just need to hit on those few points. And social proof, reputation will always help. That's why people have as seen on CNN, blah, 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 as, used by these 15 companies, as heard on these 200 podcasts, right? That's just a social proof reputation thing, which, a lot of people that don't know you, if you started creating a course, they're like, that's the big challenge too. How do I make them trust me? So those are just small trust indicators. But the sales page itself is just a sales conversation. You got to hit on the same points, and it's easiest to see that by doing it in one-on-one context, right? And at the end, and this is what every single good marketing firm will do, especially the pyramid schemes, when they're selling you timeshares or anything, they will say, really, really carefully figure out, why didn't you buy? Which part of this presentation, made you not want to buy? Like they will keep asking those questions, and you might piss off the prospect a little bit, but this is data that you really, really want, especially if you're not selling well yet. If you have your sales conversation down pretty well, and you're a decent salesperson, you will figure this out on your own, but you should at least ask just once, what did I do wrong? Right? Just to get that. But yeah, you got to find your message, and yeah, hiring copywriters, I don't know. I have a lot of friends in the industry, so I have nothing against what they do. Some of them are great, but it's just hard figuring out who's good, right? And that's dangerous. So what we'll typically do for the clients who don't want to waste their time and want to do this in the paid way, which we do, we have those. We'll just create a couple of variations, right? We'll, don't go crazy, like maybe 6 different messages, because if you do too many, you won't figure out what's working, right? And they'll be simple. Like we'll test 2 images, 3 pieces of copy, 6 headlines, and we'll start eliminating them, right? So first we'll see which headlines are not working, then which pieces of copy, and then we'll kind of go backwards. But this is how that looks. So let's say out of the 6 ads that we set up, only ad 1 and 3 converted, right? Which that usually happens. About 20% of things will work. And then we'll just see, okay, well, if we look at those 2 ads, we have 1 image, which we know that's the image that's going to work. We have 2 pieces of copy. We got to test that, and 2 headlines. Easy to narrow in, right? Then we'll run another test between, we'll probably have 4 variations on this one. We'll do copy 1 with headline 1, copy 1 with headline 3, copy 2 with headline 1, copy 2 with headline 3. Image stays the same because we know that works. And we'll start testing it, and then at the end we'll come up with the one that wins, and we just kill off everything that wasn't working. And in this instance, this image sucked, so we just killed it off for the client, and we had a couple of variations here, and this was mostly headlines in this one. So we had 3 different headlines which we were still testing. We had the same headline here and here, but this one just didn't work. So that's to find our message. Once we do figure that out, and it's only done through testing, this is not anything that you cannot do, we start figuring out which other platforms that we're not using our potential clients might hang out. So this is the next step, which gets missed a lot, and that's, who is my perfect client? That's usually my first question to anyone that's not selling well. Describe the perfect client to me. And I'll often hear something like, "Oh, it's a man or a woman working," and I'm like, "Dude, yeah, that could be anybody." We're talking about perfect clients, right? Like, Chris, who would be your perfect client? Because we know it's a course creator, right? But what's the rest of that? What did you figure out?
It's a course creator who has at least 2 years of experience with WordPress already, is already making at least $30,000 with their expertise that they want to make a course about. And they are already some kind of content producer, so they're not afraid of the video camera or creating, lots of content.
So are you going, and I kind of want to put you on the spot, so
that's fine. Put me on the spot.
Just a little bit.
I have a second one too, by the way. I just want to throw this out there since you're putting me on the spot. Okay. Also, the people that build these types of high value custom LMS sites for clients is also one of my perfect clients. So it's the builder and the other one that has this perfect mix of experience, monetization, and content skills. So I have two perfect clients.
So that second one kind of leads into my question. So because initially I was like, okay, so you have people who are on WordPress and they're coming in. So that's not very difficult to find, right? You can look for coaches, authors, all the people who are on stage usually, right? Because authors usually write books to get on stage and have nothing to sell. Right. So move them onto your thing. Yeah. But then you have this whole other part of people who are on Udemy, on Thinkific, on Teachable, on these platforms, that eventually outgrow them.
Yes.
And correct. What's next? right? What's next?
I call
And
that, that's my third avatar. I call them the switchers. So I have starters, switchers, and builders. That's just what I call them. So I have like three.
but with your business, I would really start thinking how to help my builders market to their people to help get people on my platform, right? Because that's the thing, right? A lot of these builders have this thing where like they want to get people to to come from Thinkific Teachable. I'll build this thing for you, but they just don't know how to do it.
Right. Maybe they're a WordPress expert, but this is their first like course coaching kind of client or something like that.
Yeah. So you have a lot of them. So there's a lot of places where you could look to find these guys. At least in my opinion.
Yeah.
So Facebook, well, you got that. YouTube, definitely. You could hijack some competitions videos and kind of get into that. AdWords, maybe Pinterest. I've seen Pinterest work for niches that it shouldn't work for, so I have a hard time with this one. That's the only one I really always look at. Like, I truly don't know. I'll give you an example. I had this guy. Amazing course creator. He's helping people build private practices, right? Which is a very dry kind of subject, therapists, right?
Yeah.
Grew his business to almost $500,000 a year now, working 3 days a week. And I'm saying this because I am in awe of what he's doing. And although I helped him with a couple other niches, like his main traffic generator was Pinterest. And I asked him why, and he also has no idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's just, so sometimes, assumptions also, like you got to test them, like if you will stick out and if you will like obviously go off, depends on what you're doing. Like unless you have something that's very visual, Instagram, it's probably not going to work. And I know it's not going to work too, because I have clients coming from Instagram and the platform itself is not working 1/10 as well as it did 2 years ago for a lot of different reasons, right? Twitter also depends on the thing, but if you have anything with eating meat, picking up women or politics, Twitter is going to be your play, because that's 90% of what happens on there. If you have something really legit, it takes some research, but maybe I've seen it work. LinkedIn is really good just for B2B. So if you're going to consumers only, it's not. Pinterest, that's a wild card. I don't know. AdWords, it depends too. Like if you're going after something super competitive, you might also use the platform, but just go maybe on YouTube, right? So the example would be, I'm going to help you pass the Series 6 exam, right? Which it'll be super expensive on AdWords. You might just not get your money back, but it's going to be reasonable on YouTube. And then Facebook, it really depends too. My problem with Facebook lately is just the cost of ads going up every quarter or so. And I'm seeing it, it's like very visible, like the things that used to cost 75 cents in 2015 are like at $7 now. And we're seeing webinar opt-ins and everything go up tremendously. So your offer needs to kind of get more expensive at the end, or it doesn't make sense. With LinkedIn, organic outreach only, we've played with their ads. They're like $8 to $15 a click. I doubt anyone here has a product that this would make sense for. But we usually start with 3 or 4, just initially, right? And we'll do a little bit of testing. And once again, you're tracking everything that you're doing, because otherwise you will know. And you start eliminating just with the ads. Like, okay, this platform didn't work. Take it behind the barn, shoot that thing. This one didn't work, again. And then you pick your 1 or 2. Maybe it is the Facebook for you, which you started with. But you might see a lot of potential on YouTube and be like, okay, well, let me figure out Facebook 100%, and then we'll move to YouTube for scaling, right? Because you don't want to spread yourself thin too, unless you have a big budget. And what we've seen, organic can easily take you to 6 figures, right? So, sometimes when we see people like, oh, I want to make my first 1,000, at this point, you just need to hustle and probably get your messaging right, because that's usually what's, stopping you from that. After, you get to 6 figures, that's going to be a systems thing more than anything. Past 7 figures, you're going to hit a lot of ceilings on some of these platforms. So it's going to take a lot of different type of strategies to get there. Multiple platforms, multiple outreach, probably affiliates, different things. But in the beginning, just the 6 figures, one platform, one good message, and hustle. And then, I like to say hustling is overrated once you get past that, because you want to get smarter and not work so hard. So this is just an example of us tracking this, wrecking the shotgun for a client. And for him, since it was just one message, we didn't have multiples here. It was very easy. We did about the same amount of work on each one. LinkedIn had 52 people hit the opt-in page. AdWords had 38, and Facebook had 463 here. So easy, we just Facebook, that's what works for you. Then LinkedIn, then AdWords. He actually thought AdWords would be much better than LinkedIn, but data said otherwise. So, easy to figure out. But you want to track all of these, always answering the data, reverse engineer the traffic, and any platform not working, just shut it off, and if you see something that has a lot of potential, just keep that as, your second next to figure out platform, but don't figure out everything at once. Don't do it. Once you get the one platform, you just narrow in and scale. And this, once again, more of an example of paid, because it's easier to explain. With organic, it would be more of like, well, it depends. Let me hear about your audience. I can't, come up with this unless I know what you're doing. But with Facebook and Instagram, if it's paid, we'll go remarketing first, then we'll go lookalikes and custom audiences. We see people switch these two around a lot. They'll go after custom audiences first. At this point, Facebook is so smart that if your initial remarketing audience is good enough, they'll know much better than you can who the best people will be to go into your funnel. So some smart lookalikes, I would still put constraints on them based on, so I would let Facebook do their thing, but I would still say, fine, except for these and these things, which I know don't really convert for me, right? So it could be, I know that my target market is people between 28 years old and 38, right? So you got the 10-year thing. I would still exclude the others because I know this part. Like Facebook can, figure out the demographic, but I know that for me this works, so let's not waste money on it. Because, with Google and Facebook, their whole thing is I want to take as much money from you as possible. My job is to give as little as possible. So I will still put constraints on it. With AdWords, we go specific keywords, then phrases, then broad. I'll explain it just because I've had to a client, so this is not common sense. Specific keywords could be course creators, right? So anyone who only searches for specifically course creators, not creators of courses, course creators, right? A phrase could be people who make online courses, like, or how do I make an online course? And only that phrase, that's it, right? When you don't go after these, Facebook automatically puts you in broad. And this is what happens. If you wanted to look for course creators and you left broad, you would start getting things like, why do course creators suck, right? Or do course creators make mistakes by starting courses? Like you would start paying for all these nonsense sentences, right? So when you do get to broad, your main job is going to be just eliminating everything that's nonsense from Google, right? But you start with these, not much traffic, but they'll get the best results. So what I've seen is often you can find something by doing some keyword research, which will tell you what what lead magnet to come up with, right? So I'll give you an example. We had in the private practice niche, people were looking for private practice checklist. This was like a search that they were already doing. So I told the guy, well, just come up with a lead magnet that's the private practice checklist, and we're going to use these specific keywords to get people in the funnel, and it worked. It's not rocket science, just made sense. So sometimes when you're having problems, and you're even on Facebook or anything else, with lead magnets, just start doing some keyword research, and you might just see it in front of you. With YouTube, we initially like to hijack specific videos, right? So if your competition has a video that's seen a lot and getting a lot of traction, we only want to put ads on their video, that one video to start. Then will be the whole channel, and then at the end, keywords. This is the most tricky to get right on YouTube. But we just like to hijack people's stuff. So if someone just built up a huge audience on a different course platform, WordPress plugin, if I was Chris, I would just go in there and hijack his whole channel. I would have a banner on the side. I would have a banner under every video, and in stream in the beginning. Like, you would see me 3 times for every time you see him on his own channel. And this was one of those examples of what we thought was working versus what was really working, right? So I'm going to show you both. But we had, cold traffic coming in. We had Instagram messages, old Facebook ads before they implemented the marketing, some retargeting, some organic posts. And based on these, we've seen that the Facebook cold traffic and the Facebook retargeted worked best, right? But in reality, the other ones didn't do anything, right? Because this was what my client was looking at. Like, okay, this works great, this was great, but on Instagram messaging works almost as well as this one. Let's keep putting money into it, right? And they had no sales from that whatsoever. So these two, we kind of seen, but you can still see that, the numbers were not even close to the traffic we were getting, but these two were completely worthless. The old Facebook ads, not doing anything, and the Instagram, even though the numbers seemed like very close, like, oh, we're probably getting sales from it, it was nothing. So we just killed off Instagram completely and just stuck with the remarketing and the new call traffic. And then we expanded based on that too, to do more. But we would have wasted a lot of money still trying to get this one working. And you never stop testing. Like, even though I don't like the hustling mentality, you can't ever really step away from this. Even an ad that's working great, after maybe 6 or 7 months, it'll stop. And you will have to have something else on the back burner. And you can restart the one that's been working a year or 2 from now when people forget. But you gotta keep testing. And I'll share this example with you too, which some people think that their clients like notice everything about them, but our attention spans are so bad that I had a client that had 3-month email sequence, right? And what we found through a different client was that a lot of people signed up in a similar niche after a year. So this guy's asking me like, well, so should I write up a 1.5-year email sequence? And I'm like, no. All you do is you take that 3 email sequence and you rerun it every 3 months, forever until the people run off. And the results were the same. And we didn't get one email, even after 9 months, of someone saying like, hey, you sent the same email twice. I mean, so if, for the people here, like if you have a longer email sequence, and you will get a lot of sales a year or 2 from now from these, if you continue it, just rerun your email sequence. And the reason why the sales come in is the same reason why I gave my hats off to Chris in the beginning. People online are used to everyone coming and going. So a part of building trust, and all you need to do to build trust in some instances is someone just seeing you for a year or so. That this person is not going away. and now I'll buy from them, right? So it's not your messaging, it's nothing else. It's just that now that trust is there by just being consistently in front of someone. So with emails, my strategy for my own business too is to kick people off my emails as quickly as possible. Because if they don't want to buy, just don't waste my time and money, which I have to pay to ConvertKit or whatever other responder you use. And then the other scenario, I'm like, well, the other people just don't trust me yet, so I'm going to just keep sending them stuff for years. In my business, it's a little different because it moves more. But if you have just a course, those touch points and highlights and golden nuggets shouldn't change much because it's you're selling the same transformation, so you can reuse that sequence over and over and over again. But those are always differences when you're selling a service or a product and then a course. Courses have some unique things to them, which this is one of them, and it's a great one too because you don't have to do that much work. So for email sequences, just rerun them, but not like a week. Week one, don't do that 52 times. Like it should be about 3 months. So like my question now would be like, how many emails should I have? In the first 10 days, have 10 emails, then do 2 emails per week for the rest of those 3 months. And rerun that forever. But obviously don't give the same welcome email in 3 months. The one's like, hey, thank you for signing up. I'm just letting you know this is, still everything else is okay. So some of the testing that we do, this is way past the messaging stage, right? Because that's the most important. We'll play with the colors. We'll play with images versus text. What I found too, lately on Facebook, the color versus black and white has been an interesting one because people are just not used to it, right? It breaks people's attention much more. I usually call them the scrolling zombies. It just breaks the attention a bit more when they see something they're not used to. It's like, oh, this doesn't look right. Oh, it's black and white. It's that type of thing. The focus of people versus product, right? So in this case, it would be more of the transformation versus the person using it, right? So sometimes you will have an image of someone on their laptop. Oh, he's taking my online course, where you could have a picture of the end goal, right? So, well, once they learn this, what's the result? Let's get a picture of that. Same thing, problem versus solution. This is a thing you could easily get from if you did that one-on-one sales conversation, right? People are asking like, will it do this? Will it do that? And you put that into the ads. And other tests would be just the answers to those questions. Like, you will do this, you will get that, So it's just a different way of positioning things. Show using product, that's more for our clients that actually have a combination of a course and a product. So this happens a lot in the sports industry. Someone will sell one of those like back rollers, which like to, after your exercises, but it will also sell a course on how to use it, So I found people making a lot of money now by creating something that's kind of like a hybrid. Something physical and a lot of, so another client that I've been working with now is helping trainers with actual presentations, right, for what they need to teach, which is required by their industry. And right now we're testing what's most important when it comes to the messaging. Do people care more about the online course, which is, like how to teach, what to teach, blah, 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 or the actual materials, which will save a lot of time because the people don't have to come up with these materials now. They just take them and run with it for the next year and a half. So it's like the slideshow in itself is sort of like the product, right? Which we could be showing. And then like how to teach it, what to teach, how to come up with it is the online course. And we are testing that right now because we just don't know what's more important to these. What does a trainer want more? Fonts too, we'll go into that. once everything else has been kind of figured out. But the biggest takeaway is just track all this stuff, because, you know, I've seen people testing so many things. They'll be like, oh, this button needs to be red, orange. But if you're not tracking, like, how do you know? That's the main thing, right? How do you track your sales, Chris? Like, I mean,
I'm not bad, but I'm not great. So I'm using Google Analytics, Facebook Pixel, and, you know, Active Campaign, you know, tracking or whatever. But I don't have this awesome like full funnel view that I can make sense of. Like that's one of the reasons why I've got my own like 20 questions for you here, because
I was just wondering, because you're way more advanced than most of the people that say you know, have as customers when it comes to this. And that's what I found. Even you're probably looking at it like, I kind of know what's happening, because we used to do this for a long time too, but you don't know. Like, you
not
don't
100%,
know. Not 100%, yeah, which is, you know, sometimes like, oh, like I wish.
Yeah.
That's why we figured this out. All right, I was wondering. But yeah, Active Campaign. And that's the email aspect of it, right? That's always the hard part. Like, okay, I know people got on these emails somehow. Yeah. Unless you just have one opt-in, then it's simple. But most people don't. You know, they'll have like 20 different ones, and then one part of the email sequence will come from all the other email sequences, right? So like we have like 20 opt-ins and all, and then it's like, what happened? Where did they come from?
Right, exactly.
And yeah, this is just our service. It's a breakaway from what we do as a company. So we used to offer this only to our clients, and now we just, you know, very inexpensively, a little bit above cost, just give it to everyone. And I thought your audience could use it. But yeah, let me get the questions.
Well, let's start with Deborah there. And before I dive in, awesome presentation, by the way. It's super enlightening. And even me as an advanced marketer, you know, you kind of demystified all the parts. Like, it's really not that hard. You just got to set it up correctly. And you got to have these frameworks of, these are the dials to turn, which is like super helpful, super helpful. Deborah asks, has your therapist client used Pinterest ads? Do they know what kind of content is getting pinned on Pinterest?
So it was mostly organic stuff. And they are doing 3 different things that I've seen, because I was trying to figure this out myself. 1, a lot of quotes. 2, are you having these type of problems? And then 3, the solution, right? Fix this problem by doing X, Y, and Z, right? So they were testing the quotes and question versus answer, right? So kind of like what you've seen here is the problem versus solution, right? That was their biggest thing. They were asking the therapist if they have these problems and then telling them they can fix this problem, or this is how to fix this problem, right? That was most of it, what I figured out from him. But just the amount of traffic that he was getting from the therapist was, you know, like, from Pinterest? And he's like, yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question on that. I haven't even considered Pinterest because I'm a software company, and I thought Pinterest was more for like architecture and fashion and like arts and crafts. But
it's a wild card.
Yeah.
It's a wild card, Chris. Like, look, man, like, I used to think it was only for ladies making like bags and doing makeup and buying clothes. And I was completely wrong. Like, what is a therapist doing searching for answers for his business on Pinterest? That doesn't, so it's a wild card, right? Like, it's, so what I would do is, when I'm looking to rack my shotgun, right? Like, for the 3-4 platforms, if you only see, let's say, 3 platforms that make sense for you out of those, you know, couple mentioned, but you should be kind of testing 4, as I said, Pinterest is that wild one. Which is like, you know, if I know these 3 work, those others don't, and which one should I kind of try? Try Pinterest. That's what I feel like now. It's just a wild card. You're either going to hit the lottery or miss, which is fine.
Deborah says that last she checked, Pinterest audience is 75% affluent women. It makes sense to me that he's getting clients there.
Well, yeah, now it does too once I start doing research, but that's the assumption, right? And I'm not always right. Like, I look at things and I'm like, okay, well, I think differently now based on what I've seen, you know, and this is going to happen with you too. And this is why I said hiring copywriters is so dangerous, because a lot of them have big egos and assumptions, and they don't want to change them, and they don't know your business, right? And that's what scares me with them.
Deborah has another question, and this was related to one of your Funnelytics slides. So in your tracking, the one message client visual you showed, Facebook had the most clicks, 463, but the pool was 1,169, 40% of the total. Yet LinkedIn and ads were both 100%, although the pool was much lower at 38 and 50 or something, I think. What insight does that give you as to the better ROI? I'm not sure if you got the question there, but that's what she was asking.
Yeah. So in this instance, all we were looking at initially was which group is actually clicking on and seeing that opt-in page, right? I just wanted to just quickly show the assumption versus what, right? What we would do is we would reverse engineer this from the thank you page again. And see which channel actually brought us the people we want after we, you know, we figured out the first step, you know, instead of throwing money into these 4, we're going to throw it into 2. And the next step would be, we would go one step further, you know, once we had enough people, and just see which ones are actually signing up, and again, eliminate what doesn't work. So that image doesn't show the whole picture, right? The insight was only, okay, we are wasting money on a couple pieces here. But from the one, with the one with LinkedIn, yeah, we would go one step further too. You know, we would reverse engineer and see who's actually bringing the money in, because we're seeing 3 channels are working. One's working better than the other one. You know, LinkedIn was actually better than I think the Facebook one. So Facebook is maybe out, but we're going to again see who's actually bringing the sales in. So Funnelytics could be its own webinar. I just kind of wanted to show some examples of, you know, the problems that we encounter and like assumptions. But you could, yeah, definitely get the data you need if you had that funnel in front of you.
Let me ask you a question. One of the things that slows me down as a marketer who wants to do more tracking is always having to create unique links, especially when it comes to something like social media or whatever. Is there an easier way than going to Google UTM link generator?
Yeah, so yeah, Funnelytics helps you do that. So if you have a property, you can actually create 10 Facebook ads going towards that. And you would just label them, let's say like lead magnet 1, lead magnet 2, lead magnet 3, right? And it will give you those links, which you just throw in. So it's like all done within the platform, and you just copy and paste.
So it's more
very
efficient.
Quick. It's just quickly, because it's already, first you visually set it up really quickly, then copy the links, and then tracking's already set up. Like the software takes care of the rest of that. Where with Google Analytics, like those other things, you would have to set them up on an external website, and you would have to put them in somewhere else, and then you will not really see it. So it takes at least 2 steps out from that work. So it's super easy, and it's drag and drop, and just, you know, you label it really quickly, like just LM1 or, you know, whatever you want to, and it'll give you that link. It's really cool. So the second you attach a Facebook ad to a property, it already takes that domain link, and it will just add whatever you put in at the end of it, and you just copy paste, right? So I wish I could show it here, but it's super easy.
That's cool. And how should people think about conversion to an opt-in, like a lead magnet or webinar registration, versus getting the sale? Because I see some people, especially beginners, super focused on the sale, but there's also these other kinds of conversion points.
And this is why, you know, with this client, I told him, since we don't have a big budget, you know, data to play with, like I get what you want to do, but we need to figure out if the steps before are working properly first. So initially was, you know, let's see how many people are seeing the sales page or the opt-in page, right? And, you know, instead of throwing money into the next ones, we quickly eliminated Instagram. So we just saved some cash before the next test continues, right? Once we've done that, now we have only 2 channels, which was Facebook remarketing, Facebook cold. And now we're going to use only those 2 and figure out how many people opted in. Not just seen the sales page, but opted in. and we're going to eliminate more based on that. Once we eliminate more on that, we're going to see, okay, now we want to see how many people opted in and clicked on our email, which actually showed them the sales page we want them to see. Done. Eliminate again. And then we want to see how many people done all that and actually bought the product. So even though we might sell the products from the beginning, all that's going to do is build up more data for us, but we will actually focus on that until we kind of go step by step and, you know, figure out what's broken in the beginning. So an example of that in a factory would be, let's say, I don't know if a lot of people know what a bottleneck is, but that's the thing that stops whatever, you know, from happening. So like if someone's making, let's say, pencils, and the machine can only make so many of the metal parts for the eraser, you know, things would stop at the bottleneck, right? At that piece. And this would be with that. So quality control. Some companies will put the quality control after the metal gets made. And now they're making a lot of bad pencils and waiting for that to happen. This is what would happen if you just went for sales. And then some put the quality control before the bottleneck. So they know, since this machine is only making so many of the metal parts, we will do quality control before and make sure that all the pencils who are broken before this don't go through the machine, so we don't waste even more time and money, right? So that's something we've taken from an idea we took from huge factories, and that's what they do. This is quality control before we move on, you know, and each one of these is a bottleneck for us until we move past it.
That is awesome. That's super cool. Tim asks, he sees people starting specific Facebook groups first to create pre-buzz for their course. Do you recommend that and track that too, coming from tribe building efforts before cold marketing?
I think that's a better question for Chris. How would you recommend for someone to build a Facebook group? Because, you know, my opinion, it varies on this, but it's a lot of work. It's not your platform. I don't know. Chris, what do you think?
I think, I mean, building community it's more than just building an email list. And if you're willing to do the work, I think it's a wonderful idea. I mean, I have like a 7,000 person Facebook group. I like to say it was like 5 years of daily work to overnight success. And
that's,
it was, up to the first 400 people, it wasn't really that engaged. It was a lot of work just to get people, to get it to take on a life of its own. But if you're willing to commit to it and keep the quality high and kick people out all the time and all that stuff, like, yeah, do it.
And that's the challenge that people run into. And I, you know, I'll have someone saying like, you know, Tom, I started a Facebook group to help my efforts and I'm not hearing anything. I'm hearing crickets. Well, like Chris said, you will continue hearing crickets for quite a bit of time before it takes off. So it is a snowball effect, but it takes a long hustle and work to build it up to that snowball, right? So, and with me, and that's why I threw it in, I'm very big on control. And, you know, I've learned through many of my other businesses that, you know, if someone else controls your business, you don't really have one at some point. So anything controlled by Facebook, Google, LinkedIn, like that's the only thing you have and you've built, you know, the foundation is not very solid. You know, it's great until it works, but the day it doesn't anymore, or it's taken away from you, it's not. So I would proceed with caution.
Yes, those are good points. About YouTube, I know you can put like ads beside and stuff, but like that main isn't the biggest opportunity that main first 5 seconds in front of a video? Is that, or am I making an assumption there?
That's an assumption. The ones that we've seen work best are either the few seconds before or the banner on the right-hand side.
And that's a banner, not like a promoted thumbnail kind of thing. I'd have to look at it to see. Is it?
So I think it's a 250 by 250. It's the same type of ad that you would throw on Google AdSense.
Okay.
And it's on the right-hand side above the suggested videos.
Okay, gotcha.
So usually what you want to do is, if you really like someone's video, you want to hijack all of those. And basically to hijack all of those, you need to give YouTube all 3 dimensions. So you would give them the dimension of the banner below, the one on the side, and the video to go in front. And YouTube will then see, okay, I've got all of those. I want to put all of those on there. That's it. There's like no way to actually do it otherwise.
And what, like from a messaging standpoint, in some examples you've seen, do people do really right in that first 5 seconds? Because I know when I watch YouTube, I can't wait to click the skip ad button usually, but sometimes I'll hear something and I'll be like, all right, that's interesting. I'll give you 15 more seconds. And then like, if it's good, maybe they got me. I don't know. But how do you make something compelling in such a short amount of time?
It's usually by, and it's the interrupting the scrolling zombies, except with YouTube, it's the interrupting the watching zombies. So
Yeah.
you need to have a question or a statement made that's a bit unusual, right?
So like controversial, or like make people like, hey, wake up, think, like, I have a question for you. Have you ever, whatever.
Yeah, so the cheap version of this, and anyone who's been to a bookstore or the airport seen this, is all these authors now trying to be cool and controversial by putting fuck with those two little things in their book. You've seen that?
Yeah.
You know, how to stop this, how to stop effing this, how to stop that. And at the end, it's like, seriously, like I seen, in the top 10, 3 books with that nonsense in there. But that's the cheap, crappy way, which someone converted to YouTube recently, because I was stopped with an ad like, do you like fucking your clients? And I was like, I mean, cool, a bit unusual, but it's a cheap way of doing it, right? So do that, just don't be cheap, by just using a word that's like, okay, it's okay for a while, then it gets played out. But it's the same type of idea. It'll stop you in your tracks when it's the first time you're seeing it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what you want to do on YouTube.
That makes sense. What, you mentioned you said the phrase, a good use of a limited budget. If somebody's just getting going on paid, and let's say they're pretty validated on the organic, and they've got, conversions happening in their network and their just SEO traffic, what is a good use of a limited budget? And should you consider a starting budget amount per month to invest on paid traffic?
Well, so if someone's got the messaging right, because they've pre-validated, so we're kind of, we're assuming this. But maybe on Facebook, they really want to start getting their groundwork done before, they can move on. Then, you have your messaging, but then like, okay, is it the whole messaging, or do you just have your headline? You have your copy. So we would just do small tests of, will people react better to an image or a video? And
are these like $50 tests or $100 tests?
I usually do like $20, $30 per day. But what you want to do is make sure they run a couple weekdays and over the weekend, because people are different and they react differently to things, whether they're working or not. So maybe do like a Thursday until Monday test, or Friday until Tuesday, right? So you're hitting kind of both the end of the week, the weekend, some of the weekdays, like, just to get a better idea, and try hitting around 1,000 impressions. Because then you kind of, okay, 1,000 people have seen this. That's usually enough to know, like, sort of what's happening with it.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate that. Can you tell us what people get at wetrackyourmarketing.com? We got a link to that in the chat. What's over there? What's in the offer?
So initially we had only one offer when I tested this in November at a conference, and I sold a lot of them because we were basically offering access to Funnelytics, which is the pro folder where we can do everything that we talked about for like, I think it's like $97, and normally it's like $1,500–1,600 yearly. So one-time fee, boom, you get it. We hook you up with that. The second one we had is where we help you set up the first initial properties, because we found some people saying, can you at least get me started? Because we just don't, and if, you need us to get more of your team in there, blah, 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 like we put that in there. And the last one, which is we don't really like selling because it's a lot of work, but we've been asked lately is, can you do it all for us? I have ClickFunnels and 20 emails and all this stuff, and I just want you to set up everything. So we said yes. And it's still up, but we're still wondering whether we want to continue doing that. So it's 3 different ones. The middle one has been the best seller. The first one just gives you the access. The 2 is access with a little bit of help. That's the gold. And then 1 is do it all for people who want us to do it all. But yeah, it kind of came out organically. We're still not 100% set on this. The prices are still very low because we're testing just what people want from us more than they don't. At the end, I would like just having 2 products. We'll probably take that all done for you away. And the first one's going to be still the simple one, probably at a little higher cost because Funnelytics is going up every year. And the second one, hopefully, will be the exactly dialed in what 80% of our market just wants. And it's the simplest for us. So we are still testing too. That's why you see, its prices are low and it's like a couple different offers on it. But with the stuff we're selling, you can already do anything we showed you in the presentation. And this is what we set up for our clients too. So you have the exact same tools if you spent $3,000-4,000 with us for the actual marketing. So it's just a breakaway, a small piece, which I think everyone should have. And that's why we broke it away. It was more of like, it's going to be more work for us to set up this other piece of business, but I feel like every single person should be tracking. Like, you're going to lose so much money if you don't. That was my thinking behind it.
Well, and we're going to draw our giveaway winner here in a sec. One final question, like I spent a lot of time just helping people like do best practices, especially in the beginning. And one of those is like, it's the very beginning of your project, day 1, install Google Analytics. There's some WordPress plugins that make that super easy. Just like have a tracking mindset. Even if you don't need it right now, you're going to need it later. How does somebody go from beginner tracker to like, all right, let's get serious? Kind of like in your world, like what's the best way to like level up?
So when you start trying to test your messaging, that already means you are moving up foundationally, and that's where the better tracking should come in. Initially, when you're just putting nonsense out there in the world and hoping someone buys and, testing, you just like, okay, I got my sales page up, there's no need for good tracking yet. Like, you're still getting your kind of feet wet, on the ground. But the moment you actually start thinking like, you know what, I'm going to do my first test and I want to see results from it. Well, then you do need to start testing. Now, if you are only doing, I'm testing whether people go straight to my sales page and buy from me, all within WordPress, analytics is okay for that. But the moment you introduce, I'm going to test lead magnets and emails, then Funnelytics kind of, or something like it, which we haven't found yet, will have to play a role for you to get a big picture. Because with analytics, you only see a bit of the end result. I've seen people come to my lead magnet, I've seen them disappear, and I've seen some people appear on my sales page, and I kind of know what's happening, but I don't really, it's not a test anymore. So that's when you've moved on and you need something bigger. Because even if you look at ActiveCampaign, your best really bet is like, well, I can see that this headline is working and this one's not, and I can test those by switching them off and seeing if the click-through rate goes up. But it doesn't tell me, is this actually leading to a sale? And if I have multiple lead magnets and I'm a little more advanced now, and let's say, like, this is what usually happens. People will test 16, 17 lead magnets because, like, you need to test a lot of them to make it work. And the first email will always be the same, kind of like, thank you for getting this lead magnet, blah, blah, blah. But then they all get thrown into that sequence, right? Mm-hmm. So now I don't know even which lead magnet they came from, the entry point that made that sale. So I'm completely blind. And that's when you really need this type of service. Well, that's, again, in the beginning, if you've only made the sales page or only one lead magnet without emails, I guess, or with just one sequence, maybe you can still play within analytics. Like that beginning stage you're fine, you know, and it's completely okay. We all start with that. It's fine. Just when you want to start really getting, you know, moving on as a business person, you need to track.
That's awesome. That's super helpful way to think about it. When you have multiple paths, when you know, emails getting involved, multiple sequences, and you want to test headlines and your assumptions across the copy and stuff like that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but from day one, even when you're using analytics, get heat maps. Hotjar, free for the first 3. At least see even from day one how people are interacting with your sales page. At least get something, get some kind of a visual. Analytics doesn't give you that, and this is free. You know, it's like a day one thing. Also, you should put a heat map on any sales page you're showing to the world, so you get some kind of feedback on it. Otherwise, you're going to be kind of working blind again, and you know, you hire a graphic designer, and he says, "Oh, we should change all this stuff around." And it's like, really, based on what?
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, so I like hiring people, but I also like to kind of make their, you know, make stuff make sense, right? It's like, well, yeah, I like what you're doing here, but why are you using it? Use the heat map. You can see where people are dropping off, where people are not clicking, whatever, you know. Yeah, work with something.
We got a question from Deborah in the audience. She's asking you to give an example of 5 properties, your $97 offer. If she's using all 3, if she's using all 3 domains, she's struggling with the quote properties concept.
Okay, so if I go back, well, on these, we really don't have it. Okay, so properties. You have 3 domains. That's 3 different properties. Let's say you had a webinar. That could be the 4th one. And you could have...
So beyond the website.
Beyond the websites, yeah. So within a website, you can use this for as many pages as you want. But I'll give you an example of one I had recently. They were using WordPress for the lead magnets. Then they were using ClickFunnels for the checkout process. Actually, no, so it was lead magnet, WordPress, webinar software, ClickFunnels for the entire upsells and checkout process, ThriveCart for the actual payment piece of it, and then Teachable for the platform. It was the most messed up thing I've seen, and that was, I think, 6 or 7 platforms then.
I call that the software Frankenstein.
It was when I seen it, I was looking at it, I'm like, why? What made you, you know, but that's the worst one I've seen. So 5 properties usually covers any normal marketing effort.
Is like ActiveCampaign or ConvertKit, or would that be a property? Like your...
It is not. Emails are tracked by the links that people click. So the way Funnelytics sees another responder is they have something called ghost lines, right? So you will create a ghost line from your thank you page on whatever, let's say the lead magnet, running through all of your email sequence. And Funnelytics sees that any person anywhere in that sequence, if they click on a link, they came from the thank you page initially.
Oh, nice.
So it tracks them, right? So it's not actually a property, but they kind of ghost track people. They know where this person came from. So no, it is not a property, but yes, they do track it.
And that's how it goes out through time, not just like one session. Like even if it's many, many days or months into the email sequence, that ghost line is tracking the original source.
And that's why it's so useful, because, for example, you could have had someone sign up today. They put that email away in their process or whatever folder in Gmail. Go back to it 7 months from now, make a sale while you're running a whole different campaign. But, you know, Funnelytics still through the ghost line scene, like, yeah, but
Kathy, did he freeze or did I freeze?
I think he did.
Okay, I thought I was wondering
I'm
if
not
that
sure. I
was.
was trying to figure that out.
Okay, thank you. Well, hopefully Tom will come back. We were just getting ready to say goodbye. While he's gone, do you want to draw the winner, Kathy, and see who we got for the $99 LifterLMS giveaway? We've got Carrie King. You were the winner of the $99 year. Hit us up at team@lifterlms.com and we'll hook you up with your winnings. Tom is back.
Yeah, my one of my internet connections just went out, but I'm back now.
It's all good. It's all good. We were just drawing the giveaway winner. Tom is from WeTrackYourMarketing.com. There's a link to that in the chat. Go ahead and grab that. You're getting a lot of thank yous in the comments. I thought that was an awesome presentation, man. It's super helpful, and I appreciate all the tips and tricks. I'm walking away with a lot of value and new ideas I gotta figure out and get into action and level up on the tracking front. So thanks for coming on here. Any final words for the people?
Just, good luck with your stuff. Be persistent. That's all I can say. Half of the battle is really persistency, and that's the thing with gaining trust from your customers. You just have to be in front of them for long enough. And yeah, thanks for letting me on. Like I thought, wow, Chris brought me on again, although I asked, I got to give even more value this time. So
It's been like a year. It's been like a year.
Yeah, but I still, I don't know, time flies really quick for me because I'm always into something.
Yeah.
But I feel like, if I come back again, maybe next year, I want to bring even more. So like, that's just
Well, that's awesome. Well, thanks. You did a great job. Thanks everybody for coming. Thank you, Kathy, for helping me put it on. And I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. Take care.
Awesome.